Yesterday, the House approved a continuing resolution that, if passed in the Senate and signed by President Biden before the end of Friday, averts a government shutdown, at least for a week. But with that reprieve, Democrats are continuing to push for a long-term omnibus spending package. Such a package would lock in the Schumer-Pelosi spending plan through the majority of 2023. What can we expect for the next 7 days as both sides pushes to end negotiations before a December 22nd deadline? Joining me now to discuss this and more is House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy. He represents the 23rd District of California and is set to become the next Speaker of the House in the 118th Congress. Kevin, welcome back to the program.
Thank you, Tony. Thanks for having me on.
Now, you've been outspoken that Republicans should not agree to a long-term deal until the next Congress comes in January. Will there be enough Republican senators to hold the line and not sign off on this Schumer-Pelosi spending plan?
I hope so. I've been working with Mike Lee and others. But first, for all your listeners and viewers, this is what you have to realize. The election has now taken place. The Republicans have a majority in the House. Why wouldn't we wait 20 days where we have more strength? Because what's happening right now, the two senators, the chair and the ranking member, Leahy and Shelby, those are two senators who are retiring in 20 days. They're not going to be held accountable to the constituents or the taxpayer. They have now crafted a bill where they won't even tell us what is the number. That we do know that they're going to increase spending by 90 to almost $130 billion, but they won't even give us that number. The omnibus is the 12 appropriation bills that we're supposed to work on all year to get done, which the Democrats did not do. Now they want to compile together all in one. And Tony, you talked about moving a continuing resolution to next week. The Democrats are doing that on purpose. Why? Because they're putting us right up next to government funding for the 23rd. Why? Because they think it'll put so much pressure on elected officials that they want to go home for Christmas that they'll just vote for what's ever before them. One, the people who are writing aren't going to be around next time. The constituents have no input. How are you going to be able to read the bill? The bill's not going through committee. They're just compiling it together. The Democrats are in power right now. It's going to create a new baseline, and the baseline is how much we start spending with government. It's going to add another $100 billion at least. And you know, we just set a record last month for the largest deficit in 1 month, $247 billion in 1 month. In this short fiscal new year that we had for government, we have now set a record because we paid more than $100 billion just in interest. The interest rates are higher. Our debt is at a place we've never seen it before. And their only answer is to spend more money that has brought us inflation. Why don't we just stop, wait 20 days, pass a longer continuing resolution so government doesn't shut down, but then we can actually get some Republican priorities. Stop the waste and wokeism, secure the border, become energy independent. In these appropriation bills, you can actually put a lot of policy in as well.
That could be the very reason they do not want this to go through the process. They're cobbling together, as you mentioned, these 13 bills that normally take almost an entire year to go through the process, and there's debate at each stage of the process. That's been completely circumvented, as Chip Roy made reference to, and it's being jammed in. It was jammed through the House yesterday. The Senate has it now. And to speak to this issue of debt, since 2008, our national debt has gone from $9 trillion to now $31 trillion. It's got to stop at some point. This looks like the perfect opportunity. As you said, the voters of America gave Republicans control of the House of Representatives. Why did they do that? Because they want the same thing they've been getting?
No, they wanted change. They watched inflation they haven't had in 40 years. And we've watched, why did we get this inflation? The runaway spending of the Democrats continuing to add more. They've already increased spending by trillions of dollars. We need to eliminate that. And the other part that you bring up, Tony, that is so important, not just the spending, but these are the areas where we can have policy wins. If you let the Democrats lock in their liberal wokeism policy that goes after our families, and we get into a spending battle next year and we end up in a continuing resolution, those policies are locked in. Why wouldn't you wait 20 days where we can make a change? We know so many times on your shows, you're bringing up the attacks that they have gone after our families, going after from all these different wokeism ideas that they're doing. We can have those wins that can say the government cannot do those things, that there are freedom, that family and faith are important to us.
Because our listeners need to understand how this will work. Most of them do. They're pretty savvy. They understand the process. But in the 118th Congress, the Democrats are going to have to negotiate with you. They're going to have to negotiate with the Republicans. It's not negotiating with themselves like they are now. Now they just have to pick off 10 Republicans, which we've seen is not that difficult to do. They just redefined marriage and put a target on Bible-believing Christians all across this nation with 12 Republican senators. So that's not that difficult to do. But now they're going to have to give and take, and you're not going to get everything you want, but it's certainly going to trim the sails and trim the wings of the Democrats in the, as you mentioned, the wokeism that's being pushed on all of America.
And if you really want to see real change, look, we're in divided government. So the bills, we're going to pass a lot of great legislation out of the House, but you've got a Senate where you need 60 votes, you've got to have the president to sign it. In this, we could enact a lot of the policies that we want. We're not going to get everything that we want, but this is really one of the best opportunities in a divided government that we can get some new substantial policies put in.
Yeah.
And the other thing that we could really do is stop this wasteful spending.
Right.
If they're going to sit and negotiate with me, we're not going to be talking about increasing spending by $100 billion. We're going to talk about how are we eliminating some of this waste.
Yeah, here's where I see the problem with government and what frustrates many Americans. I think this is from Politico or from The Hill. One GOP senator who was speaking anonymously vented frustration against you and your tactics and said he's making it tougher to wrap up the unfinished business of the 117th Congress and stirring up conservative critics. Well, I have to ask the question, should it be the priority of Republicans to put a bow on the spending of the Pelosi-Schumer priorities? I mean, that doesn't seem like that's what the voters want.
No, and Tony, the Democrats have been in power for 2 years. They control the House, the Senate, and the presidency. They didn't do their jobs. And then the voters have just made another decision that they don't want to go along the way that it's been in the past, that they want Republicans in power. But in the Senate, the two people who are crafting these bills won't even be around in 20 days. And so they won't even tell you, Tony, what is the dollar figure that they decided upon. Now, the American public lends their voice to us for 2 years in the House. We have a right to fight for them. So the people on this lame duck, so they're going to craft a bill and they're going to wonder, are they going to get enough votes for it?
Yeah.
Well, who are they going to go lobby for it? People that won't be around to have to face their voters next time.
It's totally wrong. Totally wrong.
Yeah, you've watched what they've done on these other bills. Those are the people they're going to get to vote for these. And it's wrong.
Well, Leader, we're up against a break. You got to go, but I know you've watched this process as long as I have, and I'm hopeful that the 118th that we'll see changes, because that's what I think conservatives are looking for. Thanks so much for joining us. Always great to see you. Have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you, Tony. God bless. Merry Christmas to you.